This is Mari Robeson of Love Lulu Creative, a podcast that supports and celebrates artists and creative entrepreneurs. Today is a true milestone. Today is episode number 50. I can't believe it. I'm looking back and I'm thinking about all of the incredibly talented people that let me share their stories, let me ask them questions, let me really dig into their process and get their advice. It's such an honor to be on the other side of this microphone. And I'm so humbled by the entire experience and being able to carry on my sister's legacy. It's really been a really special journey, and I really appreciate you being here to support it. So today for episode 50, I really wanted to share somebody incredible. Good luck, good fortune, serendipity, whatever you call it. But I'm very interested in filmmaking, and I found this person on TikTok and fell in love with her work. Like, you're going to love her work as well. And I reached out to her. She has a couple 100,000 followers. So, it was a long shot, but I did reach out to her, and I was so unbelievably and pleasantly surprised with how sweet and how kind she was in her response in letting me interview her for today's episode. Her name is Madelaine Turner, and if you don't know her, you're going to. She is amazing. Go look her up on TikTok right now and watch some of her videos. You guys know I say this all the time. I have an eye for talent, so it was no surprise when I'm talking to her that she did reveal a little snack on the trail that she has some big things coming up, and it's just not a surprise because she's unbelievably talented, and we get to talk today. So it's a great episode for episode 50. It's super inspiring. I mean, we talked for a while. It's a long one. Uh, we ended the interview and talked another hour. She's just, I can't get enough. She's just so interesting to speak with. So stay tuned for this really fun episode number 50. Yay! With the super, super kind and wonderful and just lovely Madelaine Turner. Hi, Madelaine. I am so excited to have you on the show today. I'm actually so honored that you agreed to do this with us, and I'm just
Thank
I
you.
can't wait.
I'm so here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so much fun. Okay, so you are just such an amazing content film creator, and we're going to get into all of that in just a second. But I want to go to where you're from. First of all, are you from California? I see that you're in California now, but
I
have you always been?
am. I was
Okay.
born in Long Beach, California. I live in Long Beach, California. I really love this city. I probably, if I do leave, I imagine that I will find my way back home
It's
eventually.
beautiful. Yeah, it's a
No, I love it.
beautiful
Yeah.
school. I went to school because we toured that school. It was, it's a beautiful city.
It's
Um,
lovely. I love it.
so were you is doing film, was that something that you were always interested in, like when you were young? Like, were you always creative in any way? Was that something you were always drawn to?
I think I think if I'm being like honest, I think it's like the first thing that like really fell in love with. I think movies, the visual medium especially has always been I think I've always been so enamored by it, and I think in like the language of storytelling, I think
Mhm.
it's the one that just immediately made the most sense to me.
Mhm.
I was always like a really imaginative child, really like prone to daydreaming and fantasy. And I felt like film sort of like was the best, best like method with which to daydream and fantasize. And so even before I knew that like filmmaking was a career, I think I was aware of it in terms of how to like interpret reality or the ways that movies interpreted reality. And so in my 5th grade yearbook, it's written that I wanted to be a director when I grew up. which is really, really
Wow.
sweet because I don't think, I strayed away from that for a really long time. I like, when I was, in high school, I was not a great student at all, and, I sort of fell off the education path, and, um, I I knew enough about the film industry to know that if I didn't get in the right places or start on the path now, it was just not an option for me. And so
Hmm.
for like my whole adult life, my young adult life, I haven't, done anything in the film industry. I was like, you know, I'm gonna go into marketing because that's where the money is. And so I sort of bounced around from different jobs and different occupations, and then filmmaking sort of like found me again, which is it's really lovely. I love
That's
it.
really interesting, and I kind of want to touch on your high school experience because, when you are super creative, and I had this experience too, you tend to you're not drawn to the maths and the sciences. Like you
Mm-mm.
really want to daydream and
Oh,
create and make things,
absolutely.
and it's not something that is valued as strongly as these other things. So sometimes the creative can get lost in the cracks, and and it does take a different path to kind of come back around and find those gifts again. So, uh,
Absolutely.
uh,
And I
uh,
think that I think with schooling, especially with like going on to college and secondary education, that's actually not what it's called. I don't know why I called it secondary education. That's high school. When you within the college space, if you're going to college for a specific, especially art, it tends to be a bit more of like a financial risk, because a lot of times the colleges that specialize in the arts, and a career in the arts tend to be a little bit more of a risk, all encompassing. So, especially if you're sort of, if you're not a good student and also concerned about finances, it can feel really,
mhm.
it can feel
Yeah,
really overwhelming, and it can feel like, you know what, we're not going to go there. That's not an option.
yeah.
We're going to figure out a way around this. We're going to kill this dream. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and they're
And then look what
expensive.
happened.
Those, yeah, those private schools are the art colleges that are real specific to the arts are very pricey as
Yes.
well. So
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
I get it. And it's gonna be really interesting how things evolve in the future because and we'll kind of get into this with what you've created with your career and how you've kind of fallen into, I guess, this way that you're expressing yourself creatively. It's There are so many things. Like, I know when I went to college and studied art, I don't really use any of that. I had to teach myself Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff
Yeah,
because those things weren't really that prevalent then. So, um,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's like it's a different way of learning how to do things these
And
days.
also I think that with like being, part of the age of like, internet filmmakers, that's sort of the category that I'm getting lumped into, which I'm totally
Hmm,
fine with. But I think one thing that I uh, don't realize is how much information is accessible compared to what was accessible 10,
exactly.
even 20 years ago. I mean, like,
Exactly.
I've learned everything I've learned because I'm able to type in like two key phrases and get like five different YouTube tutorials
Right?
of someone
YouTube
explaining the
University.
exact. No, 100%. I really feel
Right.
like I should have some sort of honorary degree. But I think beforehand, you know, you could go to college when you went to school, when you went to college, you had access to these amazing professors and these amazing resources to teach you. But I don't think people realize how much wonderful information is online, that is it's free and it's relatively, easy to access.
I
Um,
think the benefit of going
yeah,
to college though is it kind of reels you in. It's like a lot of people don't know what they want to do. They're like, I want to
right.
be in a creative thing. And then they get exposed to, well, here's fine arts, here's sculpture, here's screen making, and they get exposed to little bite-sized pieces, and then they can really develop like, this is what I love. That's also the downside of all the information on the internet is like, if you don't know what you want to do, then
Yeah,
you're
you're
just
kind of well, and also I think there's something about schooling that it's the community aspect, and
yeah.
that I think even now is something that I'm still trying to find for myself and trying to figure out
Mhm.
like that community, that group of people, because everything I do is all by myself,
Right.
and so I don't really know like it's tough to ask people to be a part of things um
Well,
for
not for you
me.
anymore.
Yeah, right, right. Well, it's definitely getting easier because I have a little bit of like a bargaining chip, but
Maybe just a
and it
little.
it was like it would be like, "Hey, I have this idea in my brain, and it's going to require a lot of work from you, and I can't pay you." So, and so,
But
whereas
just about every artist everywhere.
right, exactly. And so I was just I couldn't fathom doing that. And so that's why I ended up learning how to do everything all by myself is because I like couldn't deal with like asking someone
Okay,
like
so this
asking
is
a
really
favor.
brilliant, and I really want to kind of get into this because, okay, so just so everybody knows, you are creating these little bite-sized films that are such great stories and have such, they're so entertaining, and I think I've watched almost all of them. They're
And
so good.
that's an endeavor. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But you are an actress, a really good actress. You
Thank
are
you
a
for saying
writer, a
that.
really good writer. You are obviously a technician because you have to be able to build these. These are not, I can tell that you're doing this on a very, this is not a little reels or a little TikTok video. Like you're taking this into like Photoshop or After Effects, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to know how to do all of those things. And it's just amazing to me that you've like, it is great that you've taught yourself all those things, but eh, they're very natural for you as well, which is why
Yeah.
you really kind of signed up, I think.
I think yeah, well, and I think it's like I do think that, and this is not news to anyone, but like creativity tends to thrive a lot within boundaries, I think.
Mm,
And the idea of like pushing up against whatever boundary is like set against you. And that's sort of where that like spark happens. And so I think
I
the
love that.
I mean, I tend to get a little overwhelmed with the thought of like someone being like, here's a massive budget, do whatever you want. Like that kind of freaks me out. I need a little bit of like, I need a little restrictions. I need withholding so I know within what bounds to create. And so TikTok, in, however strange that sounds, the idea of it being specifically in the 9:16 format and the only 59 seconds, that as a creative gives you a very clear parameter with which to create,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then sort of figuring out how to work everything within that. And a lot of times, like, I sort of learned After Effects because I ran out of I ran out of places in my apartment to, like, film, and and I was like, "This is getting really boring, and I have so many stories I wanna tell, so I guess I need to learn how to, like, digitally render, different universes because I'm bored with what's in my apartment. I better learn how to, like, green screen things." And so and
Wow.
and I think that's like a really to me, that's a really, it's a creative exercise and feels really I don't know, that's just, like, the fun part about creating is sort of figuring out how to, like, push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this microwave generation too. It's like I want to be so entertained and I want you to do it like in 2 seconds.
like
Well,
right
technically 59
now.
seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even like my content, like on TikTok, I tend to ask a lot of people because usually like the punchline doesn't really come towards like the very end, or usually like the kicker doesn't like, I try to max out those 59 seconds. Usually like my videos end kind of abruptly because I'm just too lazy to like push it all into exactly 59 seconds. I'm like, "Oh, no, I needed those last 4 seconds just to like
Yeah.
say whatever." But I think it's uh I think especially in this day and age with, sort of micro entertainment, it definitely, I would be really, really interested to see how like someone like a traditional film director like, Spielberg or Tarantino or Scorsese, like if they had to create TikToks, like what they would do with that. I think that would be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, this is what's so fascinating about you is that I think we are entering a whole nother world of how things are created. Um, you know, you have to kind of keep going with what it's like everything's kind of accelerated because we have all
Mhm.
this technology around us. And even for myself, which is how I found you, was that, I'm an artist and I'm creating on this 2D level and I'm bored. Like I want to push that. How can I make this painting now walk?
Right.
Like
Right.
I want it to come alive and tell the story behind the painting because all my paintings have stories behind them. And how do I take this and I make it into this story that's intriguing, interesting, and short, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and and that I think as far as like the evolution of art in general, I think that is sort of how you see, that's how we've gotten to this point.
Mhm.
Movies didn't always look like how they do.
Right.
And so we're always trying to find, you know, I think it's finding the medium that works really well for you.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I think art translates obviously differently onto different mediums, but I think an artist's particular energy or style can work really, really well uh, within different confines.
Mhm.
And I think TikTok is just another. I think TikTok is giving agency an opportunity to a bunch of different storytellers,
Mhm.
which I think is so cool. I mean, I'm really fascinated to see sort of the artists that come out of TikTok. I've already sunk. I've kind of gotten put into that realm as well as like, she's a TikTok creator. Um, but I
Yeah,
think
but
that's
I'll
cool.
tell you, like, okay, so I was trying to find 2D animation, paper animation, because that's kind of, am an illustrator, so I want to like, and I could not find hardly anything that was, honestly, like I spent a lot of time and I really didn't find anything that was like really going, wow, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I like Alice in Wonderland ran down the rabbit hole on your feed. I was like, oh my gosh, she's like doing all these great things and you're doing it digitally, which I'm kind of wanting to still do it old school stop motion way.
I think old school stop motion is so like that is an art form. And it really is. And I think if I had the patience for it, which I don't,
I'm wondering if I
um,
do either though.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where like art, like like painting, drawing, like the physical component of art. I feel like stop motion is very much like a physical approach. It's just something that we happen to capture on film. But like when I see movies like Coraline or like
Mhm.
Nightmare Before Christmas, like to me that is like I am watching,
Yeah.
I'm watching like a physical expression of art
Yeah.
versus, moving pictures. What I
I
do
think
in
that's
After
kind
Effects
of
is really easy compared to
right.
stop motion.
Oh, I don't think so. Oh, I don't know. I know they all take a lot of time and a lot of commitment to do it, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
what I wanted to say about your feed was that, um, I I saw kind of the evolution of where you kind of started with, and then it started to build, and then you started to create it started to get more and more polished. And I was like, wow, this this it's one thing to know After Effects, to know how to draw, to know how to do this, but if you don't have the creativity behind it, good luck. I mean,
Right.
you are really clever and you have this real subtle, um, very likable energy around
Oh
what
my
you're
God.
creating.
Thank you. So nice. I
Well,
love
it's so
I try.
relatable. Like even I mean, I'm sure I could be your mother and, but I can relate to like your story about like the day, like what it's like for you to be a day. Like everybody can have those memories of what it was like when they were a child,
Yeah.
and kind of going back to all those things. So it's just very relatable and it's very likable. And then it was also very well executed. So it's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different things when you find someone who is that talented that is able to put together all of the pieces of the puzzle, you know. So
I
there's a lot of
honestly,
people
I
that are
yeah.
making things, but they're really not very good at drawing it, or they're making
Right.
something, but the story was not that good, But
Right.
it's just
I
magic.
think I think there's an element of like uh, an element of like collaging, and
Hmm.
I mean that in like a very like fluid sense, but I think I think for me, like I know my like shortcomings as I'm sure I don't know all of them yet, but like I try to be aware of my shortcomings as a creator. And I think what's so wonderful about the the access to information like we were talking about before is like I can, I may not be able to operate a camera very well. I'm not really technical in that aspect, but I can then, okay, so I have this camera footage and I can tell a story with this camera footage and it's not that great, but what I can do is then learn how to add things on top of that and integrate it into this camera footage that isn't necessarily the best, but you can make it engaging, you can make it fun. And then also like on top of that, you can add, you know, within the context of like a narrative, you can add references, you can add um, bits of humor to also make it engaging. And I think it probably just boils down to like my goal as a storyteller is probably always to just entertain. I try. It's I think I you know of course every artist wants to have the deeper meaning behind their work. But I think I feel like my job in what I've set out to do is to entertain people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so if they end up, feeling something deeper or learning some sort of lesson, that's just like a benefit. And if I've done my job well, then it'll come through in some form. But I think my goal is always to make it an enjoyable experience,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever point I'm trying to get across.
Right. And the timing of it is also really interesting. I mean, this whole COVID experience
Oh
about
yeah.
the what a lot of artists are doing during this time is, they've had time to explore different medium. Like I know I have
Mm-hmm.
the different
Oh yeah.
mediums and different. We got off the hamster wheel basically and slowed down enough to really look at our
Mm-hmm.
creative processes and go, is this really feeding my soul? Is this something really I want to be putting out in the world? And is it going to help other people? And I just, I find it fascinating that film. I mean, look at Bridgerton and like look at
I
Netflix just
know.
blew up this year because
I
we're all
know.
home.
Because we're all home because we're all
We
and we're
really value entertainment.
des and we're desperate for like escapism,
Anything.
which I think I feel really lucky to sort of be like coming into my own in this era
Exactly.
because I my natural proclivity is always towards escapism. It's always been that way, even since I was young. Like I've always loved fantasy
Mhm.
and romance. And I feel like in the, in my uh, high school years, the movement in terms of art and media was very much uh, directed towards realism and
Yeah.
and like gritty emotional like understand, which I think absolutely has its place, but I always felt like I was like, oh, like, do I really need to like have another, gritty indie drama where I feel terrible the whole time?
Right.
I just want to escape. And so luckily it the trend right now, we're moving towards an age of like escapism. And so people are super receptive to my natural instincts as a storyteller, which I, couldn't have planned for, honestly. But I'm very grateful for.
Well, it is great timing because I have a really good eye for people, and I'm just saying,
Thanks so
you're
much.
just getting
I
started.
really appreciate that. No, I'm super excited. I've had like, I mean, 2020 was a disaster in terms of a lot of things, but for me, you know, it was a disaster for my former life.
Yeah.
But my life has taken like a full 180
Mhm.
turn, and I am I'm on the path like to things that I never even like dreamed about, which is so crazy and so exciting.
So great, and I'm gonna be like your biggest fan right behind you, cheering you
Oh my
on.
gosh, thank you so
Because I'm like,
much.
make more, it's so fun."
Thank you so much.
So let's talk about, TikTok. So, when you got on the platform, were you thinking that you wanted to make films, or were you just thinking like, "Oh, everybody's on TikTok, I'm gonna get on TikTok and play around with it?"
Yeah, I started my so I have I'm from a very big family, and I'm the oldest of very young siblings. And so my sister is 15, my brother just turned 18. And so at the time he was on TikTok still 17, and I was like, got it. I try to be a very engaged big sister. And I try to know what they're talking about and be able to, converse with them. And so I got on TikTok to watch the videos he was making. And then I'm sure but like the For You page is
Mhm,
like so good at, I mean, obviously the algorithm is able to like figure out who you are very quickly.
mhm,
And so you start getting fed content that you would want to see. And so I started, you know, just watching people. I I think what I was watching for the most part was definitely more like humor, uh, fashion, music, but nothing in the realms of like really intentional storytelling.
mhm,
And it wasn't until I did this like parody of the BBC, like their, TV shows,
uh-huh.
like a BBC miniseries. And I did like I was like, I'm just gonna like go all out. I'm gonna wear this little outfit and I'm gonna get all these props around my apartment. And I didn't expect it to do very well at all. And it was like one of my better videos that
Hmm.
I've had. Um, and it's sort of like, oh, I realized what I could get away with and still get attention, which is, yeah, of course, the biggest, you know, pat on the back is if people are paying attention to it.
So when that started happening, were you thinking, "Huh, maybe I can get into doing that,
The well,
5th
the
grade yearbook, let's do some film stuff."
it really wasn't so I it was that video, and then the very next video I did after that was the Wes Anderson
Ah,
parody.
yeah,
And
that's great.
so I that sort of went to a place that was like beyond. So like that
Right.
went really viral on Twitter. There were like articles being written about me. So it went very like 0 to 100 really, really fast.
Again, playing to the fact that people really wanna be entertained right now
People really wanted to be entertained, and I think
in a whimsical, fun way, yeah.
totally. And it was a very like organic process. It was very like experimental. I sort of made it up as I went along, and I've realized like what I can do within my own space as a filmmaker, and then also what people again were like willing to watch and what people wanted to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, it was sort of I think it's the stories have always, been inside of me. I think I'm always dreaming and imagining and thinking of characters and places and things. And I once I had a platform or an avenue with which to tell stories, it was just like, oh my gosh, like sky is the limit. And so after the Wes Anderson video, that sort of set a precedent for
Mm-hmm.
the standard with which people not necessarily expected, but would respond to. I think like if I put in this much effort, they would respond
Mm-hmm.
to that. And
Right.
that I think was the for me the give and take, because at the time I was had a full-time job as an administrative assistant as at a construction company. So
Totally
I
random.
had honestly, like, loved that job, like, truly, like, adored that job, loved everyone who I worked with there, but, uh, at the time, it was like, if I'm gonna put work into something, I'm doing it on top of my full-time job,
Right.
so I'm gonna need a little attention if I put work in here. I'm gonna need, some likes and shares if we're gonna
Right. Well,
if we're
so
gonna
so
do
you do
that.
have sponsorships now. In fact, congratulations. I just saw you had M&Ms. That's a
I
pretty
did, I
pretty
did.
big one.
I've been able to, like, leave my job and, like, uh, exist fully.
And is that on the sponsorships,
Yeah, so
basically?
it's sponsorships, and then, I am now, like, able to, work as a screenwriter, and so
So
I've
exciting.
I know, it's, like, so cool. I've been, I have a couple pilots that I've
Oh my
written
God.
that are making their rounds, and, talking to different production companies about, just, you know, movies that I would like to make, stories I'd like to tell,
Oh
and
my gosh, this is what I knew.
it's, like,
I know it's gonna
really,
go.
really, 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 really exciting.
It's
I'm
really, really, really gonna happen. And I'm gonna be like, I knew
You're like, I figured it out. Thank you." No, and I'm so grateful. I think there's a part of it that's a little, it's all happened really fast, and it's all happened without, the intent to, like, get to a specific place. It's all been very much like, here is this opportunity presented to you,
this.
whether it's, I have a manager now. His name is Alex. He's lovely.
So
I
you're
I
gonna have to like people.
yeah, no, I have like people now. I
There's
can
that
refer
community you were looking
I
for.
know, I know, I know. No, it's really wild, but I am now being offered opportunities that I didn't anticipate, and I don't have a ton of I think that is the thing about what you can have by going to school for, whatever
Mhm.
your heart takes you to, is you do tend to have a little bit more knowledge about sort of the ins and outs and, like, the back end of what's happening, like
I don't know,
what
Madeline. Honestly, things are evolving so fast now.
Thank you for saying that.
I, I know. I mean, I'm just saying it's like, okay, I was on your TikTok just to before this, and I saw the Eminem thing, and I'm like, that's brilliant of Eminem to come over
Yeah,
to you, who has a huge audience, who is their demographic, and they're like, oh, I'm sure she'll come up with something so clever and fun, and put it right in front of their audience that
yeah,
they want to reach, and you're doing it in this platform that the older executives don't really know that much about.
yeah.
And they're taking notice though, and they're looking at there and like, wait a second, this girl, like, she's really talented, really clever, makes people smile. She can act, she can do this. We need to get her on board.
That that is a really crazy thing. It really is. Like my brain doesn't even really know how to like
Yes, enjoy
categorize
that.
that. No, I'm luckily like I have a husband. I'm married.
Who
Um
knew?
I know. We got married when we were very young. We've been together since we were 15 and we got married
Aw,
when we were babies.
aw.
But this has been like so exciting for him because
Oh, good. I'm
he
glad
is
he's on
just
board
like,
with you.
oh my gosh, he is over the moon excited. He's so like he's able to be that like unfiltered level of just like joy and like
Aw.
excitement. Whereas I'm always thinking about like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess it up
No, no, no,
or
no.
whatever. But he's able to be, he's able to just brag to everyone and be very, very excited. So
And
luckily I have
that's
him
really
to sort of,
important too.
yeah.
Like your inner circle person, like my
Oh,
husband, I God bless him. I don't know how he's put up with me all these years
I
because of all
know.
the different
I
things that I've
know.
done. But like they cheer you on and they're just like fascinated by the creative aspect of
Yes,
things that you
yes.
do. So
Oh, yes.
it's
No,
huge.
he's my husband is wonderful and
Yay.
not that he's not creative. I think creativity is he's creative in very different ways. But
So I was gonna ask you, does he do some of the filming?
no, not at all.
So how do you film yourself like that?
I have a camera
That you just set
stand.
the timer? Oh my
I
goodness.
that I just have it face me. And so I can see whatever is going on. So I use like my phone and like my front facing camera. So I
Oh
can
my
see what's
gosh.
going on.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's a
it's
good way to do it.
well, and also I do a lot of like a lot okay, here's my secret. I do a lot of like it the videos tend to find themselves a lot more in post-production versus pre-production. So a lot of times my method will be like I have sort of an idea, a sort of, whether it's like a parody or, uh, a visual a story that I want to tell. And so I'll usually just like put on a costume and like get in front of like my green screen or get in front of like, you know, if it's like something a little bit more put together
Like the
like the
set.
Mama yeah,
Mhm.
like the Mamma Mia video, that one. But I also for that one I didn't really have a script until I until I got into post-production. So I'll kind of just kind of figure out like I should probably have a shot where like I'm looking surprised. I should probably have a shot where I'm looking sad.
So basically what you do is you do a couple of shots in front of the camera of
Of just like what I think I sort of need, what I might maybe need. And then I kind of pull everything into my editing software, whether it's like After Effects or Premiere, depending on what I need. Um, and then I'll just sort of try to find it
so I was
in the
gonna ask you
editing.
that. Do you write storyboards or
Never.
really you're just kind of creating on the fly
I
or you have an
I
idea?
I sort of know like the sequence like how I want it to look in my brain. Like and not necessarily exactly, but it's either I know it exactly like a specific sequence or I know the energy that I want, whether it's like a really frantic pace or it's a really like meditative moment.
Mhm.
And so there's sort of, with filmmaking there's the way that the camera moves and interacts with whatever it's filming. uh, it's definitely like a language, but I think for me if I know the energy that I'm trying to get, the camera movement definitely feels almost like second nature in a sense. Like I know exactly how I want the camera to move in order to capture that feeling that I want. And so if I don't know it exactly, I at least have to have a pretty solid understanding of the mood
Mhm.
or the feeling that I want to evoke. And that usually I do know.
I love the ones where
Really
you're talking to yourself.
good.
And you
Oh
also make your
yeah.
music. Do you also make your own music for some of your things?
So, it definitely gets it's a little out and about. I definitely am by no means a musician. Um, but a lot of it is like layering. It's it's very collagey.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like there's not a ton of like uh what's the word? I'm very comfortable with utilizing a work that someone else has made
And then you're
and
kind of
like
adding
and then
the
and then working along
words.
with that.
Yeah.
I think that's the I don't think I have the artistry or like patience or anything to craft something so original and so like unique. I think music is such an incredible art form and also art as well. And a lot of times I'm like pulling and taking from other people's art and reusing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any issues with any of that? Like even like Mamma Mia, like using Meryl Streep's picture and stuff like that?
No, I haven't,
Totally
and
okay.
thank goodness. I try to I do what I do
Well, they
now
would
is like
probably be flattered.
right? I would hope so. I would hope so. I mean, if there was a space in TikTok to like give credits, like
Right.
to
Yeah.
if there was like a back end where like people could I would 100% put every single thing. But I do use a lot of public domain archives.
Hmm.
So I'll do like the Smithsonian open access. I'll try to pull my media from there as much as I can, or like the Met, they have they have like open access. Uh,
That's helpful.
yeah, and also there's websites that sort of pull like public domain works of art. And so a lot of that is like my textures, my backgrounds, is all public domain things
That's
because I
really
don't want
cool.
to. Yeah, and also like it definitely gives it a much more like textured, sort of grounded feel. I do love using, you know, especially with the Smithsonian Open Access, like a lot of like the wallpapers that I'll use are actual like wallpapers from like the 18th century that
That
they
is
were able
so
to
cool.
preserve. And like no one, I mean, unless you're like a wacky historian, like you're not going to know that. But for me, that's a really fun. Um, I love just like having little tiny Easter eggs in my videos.
Yeah, and you know what? Those are the little details that make it polished and make it feel more elevated than if somebody was just kind of throwing up something like they put on
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's elevated. It's another level and it's subtle. It's like people wouldn't know that, but there's that subliminal suggestioning that 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 wallpaper is old, you know?
Totally, totally. And I think it's like there's it doesn't take that much time to add in little details here and there. And I think like that's the fun part about having full control over uh you know my work is that like from filming to post-production, I know the ins and outs. I know exactly
Right.
what
And I
the
think
whole
that,
scope
for
is.
you, as you grow in this and you're going to be most likely asked to let go of some of those things because you're going to be doing bigger things, right?
Yeah.
But to understand how it's done, so you can actually look over the shoulder of the designer who's doing the after
Yeah.
effects, like, oh no, it needs to be like this and this. Like you actually know how to
Absolutely.
do all of it.
No, I one of the things that I loved learning about the movie Parasite, which is probably one of the greatest films ever made, like just in terms of, you know, storytelling. Is that the director, he edited it himself. He like
Ah,
it was all him. He actually edited it in it wasn't iMovie, but it was like a very like
simple
rude
program.
it was a really simple program and it does make sense like when you watch the film and you see how it's shot, they're not doing anything really uh like fantastic or not the editing is fantastic. It's actually really
Yeah.
brilliant. But they're not doing any sort of special effects. They're not doing anything crazy. And
Did
so
you watch the the background, the making of like, oh my God, Tim Burton. It's on Netflix and it talks about like his
No,
story.
but
Oh my
I would
gosh, you have
love
to go watch
to.
it.
I'm a
So
huge
good.
fan of any sort of I'm a huge fan of directors that really own a specific aesthetic. I
Yes.
think it's really I think it's a lot harder than people realize to own an aesthetic and really make it feel consistent and authentic. And
Well, you have to watch this one because it's
I
the
absolutely will.
story
I'm
of
literally
of
gonna turn
Nightmare.
it on once we're
You're
done.
gonna have to watch it because it's interesting how he does let go and these other people come in to create, and then he's flying back and forth, between San Francisco and LA on
Yeah.
on the art direction part and this, making sure it's the vision of his vision. And
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting, the whole process of creating that, which is probably next
Yeah.
level for you. So when you say that you're working on scripts, are they like are they movie scripts or are they what type of
It's
scripts?
a yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So I've written a couple pilots for television. And then I have a couple films that I'm in the process of writing.
Are
Um
you collaborating or are these solely your ideas?
they're solely me.
Wow.
I
That's a lot
know
of content.
it feels really second nature in a lot of ways. I think if anything, it's like it feels really like freeing in a lot of ways because I think there was a period of like probably about 10 years where I wasn't doing anything creative in any capacity and I was like desperate
Mm.
to
Was
be
building
able to
up.
have to have an avenue to like share. And I think there was a part of me that thought like, well, everyone has all these stories in them all the time. Like just because you have stories doesn't mean you get to tell them. But I think that there is something on like a psychological level that like even if no one was ever going to turn my scripts into a film or television, it still needed to come out in some way. I think I had to practice the exercise of writing and of storytelling. Writing has always felt like uh, I say like filmmaking is probably like the art form, and then writing is like just the nature of who I am. The idea of, but also my dad was a writer. My stepdad was a writer.
Mhm.
I come from like a very long line of wordy people,
Yeah.
wordsmiths.
Yeah. Words are powerful.
They
And
really
it's the
are.
process. I mean, true artists do it for the process. They don't
Hmm.
really care about the ultimate end outcome. I mean,
Yeah,
if it comes out and people receive it and they love it, that's just like,
that's like
wow,
best day
that's
ever.
super extra bonus. But
But I like,
it's like breathing. It's like I have to write this. It's
yeah,
something that needs.
and I really fought it for a long time. I really didn't think
Why?
that I think it's probably like a combination of just the way that our society tends to um like capitalize and monetize artistry in a lot of ways, and so and then validate it by rewarding it in terms of like success, in terms of money, in terms of like distribution. And so for me, I felt like it wouldn't be worth uh it wasn't my journey to create the art if no one was going to if I wasn't going to be able to like make a living off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also like it just felt, I come from a pretty, financially destitute background. And so it art was not only like not the smartest in terms of
Mm-hmm.
making a living, but it almost felt like irresponsible
Mm-hmm.
because, for the most part, I mean, up until ju- just now, which, you know, you can you can dice a couple different ways, but I've always had like 3 to 4 different jobs at a time, like always working, always uh trying to make ends meet in some way. And so right now with TikTok and with the sponsorships I'm getting, and the work I'm being able to to get from my presence online, I'm able to, like, for the first time like ever in my entire adult life, just focus on creating, which is like so cool.
And, it wouldn't be as interesting if you had not had all of that
Mm,
as your experience, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. I would not have had, I think, and it's probably like a boundary in itself as well, the idea of like spending time in sort of like an arrested state of not of the artist and like the dreamer still being within you, like it is
Mhm.
within creators and within artists, and having no room to express it,
Right.
and sort of what that does to your
Mhm.
inner world and the ways that you cope and compensate to to overcome that in
Mhm.
a lot of ways. And so I'm so, I mean, like, just beyond grateful for the place that I'm in right now. Um,
And I think that's so relatable to everybody. I mean, everyone gets that. And then in the future stories that you tell, if you didn't have those experiences, how can you write those experiences? I mean,
yeah,
it wouldn't be real, it wouldn't be believable.
yeah,
So I just appreciate this so much. And I love talking about the creative process with anybody. I
yeah.
just think it's
It's really
something,
fascinating.
right? And we
And
all relate to it from our own perspectives, but it's all different.
yeah, and I think it's like it makes you think about people throughout the course of human history, and like and the ways in which they have or have not been able to express themselves.
Right.
And it's like in some parts like very like heartbreaking in a lot of ways. But also I think it's really moving to think about the ways in which people have or the ways in which humankind like always pushes to express themselves, because it doesn't make sense
We're
on like
very
a
resilient. No, I think
yeah.
it's a resiliency. I mean, I think it's true. And it's such an anomaly, the creative process and being a creative person, because it's so hard to explain what that's like.
Yeah,
You just either experience that or you
you're
don't.
like, I live and I breathe and it just happens. I
It's
think, I
true.
mean, what's harder for me is to exist outside of that, exist in a space where like relaxing, like I don't know what that is like.
Oh my God. I relate to that I can't even relax when I sleep.
I know, I can't either, and I feel like I've had to learn how to find ways that like I can shut down like my brain in a way that doesn't make me feel like agony.
Okay,
Like
that's a podcast for another day, but I
I
need to know how to
know, I
do that.
know. It's like and I'm still sort of figuring it out, but it's also like, you know, knowing that like nothing works forever. And so it's constantly like re-evolving and reevaluating, the ways in which I'm being enriched and the ways in
Yeah.
which I'm enriching
How
others.
how do you hit the reset button creatively? Is there some do you are you a
I
runner?
usually I usually have to have like some sort of emotional breakdown. I'm not even kidding. Like I will fight it. I'm that's the thing about uh, you know hiding away your creativity for a really long time, is you don't get to like learn how to engage with it in like a healthy way. And so right now I'm sort of combating
I'm sorry, I'm
creative
laughing. That's just I
success.
didn't expect that answer.
No, it's like it's really like I'm very I'm very young. I'm like my creativity is kind of like a, a 2-year-old, and they're sort of just figuring out. Actually, my creativity is more like a 4-year-old, where they're like, when a 4-year-old starts like getting a little like, but they do understand
Yeah.
how to make things work. That's sort of where they're at. But it's learning how to like, um, uh, how to combat the creative process and how it's tied to artistic success. And for me, I'm learning, I'm engaging my style, and I'm engaging my voice and practicing that in tandem with uh my success on like a commercial level being
Yeah.
really, really expedited compared to the average
Hmm.
creator.
That's it.
Um,
That's the thing. That's the process of everything being kind of accelerated, but
mhm.
don't lose yourself in it because that's
I'm trying really hard. That's why I have to have breakdowns. But I also like I have, I have really good people. I have my husband, he's amazing. My mom is great. My family's really great at, just reminding me that I'm still nothing. And
oh, that's yeah, family's good for that.
they're really good. And like, my mom is like such a wonderful source, because she is deeply intelligent and deeply creative herself. And so her her opinion is always really grounded in like how she very much feels. And she's always like really impressed and, and excited for me.
Yeah.
But she's really good at, you know, being critical in a way that is constructive and that I like really, really value.
Mhm.
While still having that like, mom love where like everything I do is, perfect and amazing because I'm her daughter, of course. But couple, and so it's a really, yeah, my mom is a really, a great source for me in terms of
Mhm.
keeping myself grounded.
That's nice. That's a really nice thing to hear, and
Yeah.
I appreciate hearing
Yeah.
that. Okay, so, God, literally could talk to you forever. We're gonna have to do this again
I
when
know, I know.
whenever it's your first movie or script, like,
I know, I
when
know.
I
I'll
see you,
come back and
I
we'll
wanna
talk.
interview you. I do wanna ask you, I always like to end the episodes with asking your words of advice to your younger self, and since you have a bunch of younger siblings, maybe you can
Oh
offer
my gosh, yes.
really
It's
good advice for that, I'm sure. So what would that be?
I would say that there is often the assumption that if you have any sort of um, like a proclivity to a passion, that there needs to be someone, you know, there needs to be someone like telling you that you should do this. There needs to be lots of people telling you that you were meant for this, you were born for this. But most of the time, like people don't really know what's going on inside your
Mm,
brain, and the ideas that you have, and the the creative vision that you are are capable of. And I would say to just do, and learn how to not only tell your story, but uh, tell the story you're going to tell. Pitch your story. Like learn how to communicate your uh, vision outside of the finished product. Learn how to like get people excited about what you are going to make. I think that's a really, really valuable tool.
wow, that is really valuable.
And I
No,
think
it really is.
it's an understated like
Mhm.
skill to have is knowing how to pitch yourself and knowing how to pitch your vision, because I find that I don't often know how to express or explain to someone unless I have a finished product, and
Mm,
that's not really going to get it's going to be really hard to get that finished product without getting people on board and
Exactly.
getting people excited. So yeah.
That's really, really good advice. And it's kind of your story, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you were getting people excited, like with these little bite-sized treasures that
Yeah.
you've been posting, and it's like, wait a second, who is this person? Like, geez, this is because is there more? And I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, like, mm, I think there's so many smaller steps to that are still just as exciting and just as um like worth uh reaching towards
Mhm.
than your biggest ultimate goal. I think we
Mhm.
sort of see like our ultimate goal as like the end all be all, but there's so many things in between those
Right,
moments that are still so exciting and so
right, right.
valuable.
It's the journey, as they
It's
say.
about the journey.
The
It's all about the
journey.
journey.
I feel like we have content for like 5 TikTok videos in this.
I agree. I 100% agree. I love talking about this. I could talk about
Oh,
the
so
creative
could I.
process for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I yes.
Well, I really thank you for talking to me today because this is just so fascinating, so interesting. I'm beyond excited to see what you do next, but I'm loving where you are right now. So
Thank you. Thank you.
it's,
I cannot wait to have something like really, really concrete and very cool
oh
to
my
share with
gosh.
people.
Well, you have, gosh.
It's definitely like in the works. It's definitely like percolating in the stratosphere, but it'll be really cool to have something very legitimate.
I am so excited about that. Thank you so much, Madeline. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really, really lovely.